Biden is being accused of leveraging the FBI to go after his political opponent. From your understanding and your knowledge of the FBI, is that even possible? And could Trump have leveraged the FBI when he was in office if it was possible?
This video is brought to you by Birch Gold, brought to you by Birch Gold. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody knows the climate of our economy right now is indifferent. We don't know what's going to happen from day to day. We don't know if it's going up and going down. The housing market, all of these things are in question. So I'm begging you to diversify your income with precious metals, gold, and silver. And Birch Gold can help you with that. Brandon Tatum, are you an expert? I ain't the expert. I ain't got to be the expert. Data expert. They'll give you an information kit on how to change your IRA or 401k into an IRA 401k and with precious metals. One of the assets that have appreciated over time most consistently have been precious metals, gold, and silver. So make sure you contact the people at Birch Gold. They got it figured out. 5-star ratings with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews. So make sure you go to Birch Gold and check them out. All you got to do is text Tatum to 989898 to get your free information kit today. Text Tatum to 989898. Link is in the description section. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live or make a video. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. It creates the algorithm in which YouTube pushes the video out and we can share the content. Y'all already know what to do though. So let's get into this.
Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome back to the Arsenal Tatum Show. I have an incredible guest that can, I would argue, that probably could answer the questions the best out of anybody I've talked to, anybody that have called in related to Donald Trump, the FBI, and how weird these things have been. So somebody that was on the inside in the FBI, was actually in the academy or going to school when Donald Trump was elected. And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Seraphin.
How's it going, Brandon? Good to be on there.
Great to talk to you, man. So I'm ready to get to the nitty gritty. You know, one thing that I think a lot of people probably understand that the FBI is corrupt. I'm not saying the entire FBI, right? There's people in the FBI that are good people that have no idea what's going on at the top. But I think the top and the upper echelon during Trump's administration was absolutely corrupt. Before Trump was corrupt. And we see now some of the whistleblowers coming out and some of these things unfolding. But Biden is being accused of leveraging the FBI to go after his political opponent. From your understanding and your knowledge of the FBI, is that even possible? And could Trump have leveraged the FBI when he was in office if it was possible?
So the first answer is yes. The second answer is no. And the reason why is the FBI has a really bizarre culture that it's antithetical to what most people would experience in law enforcement. I mean, people in law enforcement are generally conservative. And I would say FBI agents are generally conservative. They mostly care about things like faith and family, and they care about things, it's a very Catholic workforce. It's why it's so strange that they decided to go after Catholics. It's not the group of people that you would expect that would go and investigate a Republican president. And I had somebody argue with me online the other day, something like all the FBI directors have all been Republicans, and maybe they were, at least by what they registered as. But my tweet got over 1 million views because you see a picture of Jim Comey and he's dressed like a Biden campaign action figure. He's wearing like all the Biden stuff. He's got the Biden mug, right? So he looks ridiculous. That is not a guy that says that I'm a Republican. And as an independent and someone who's generally just a conservative dude, I look into it, and there's no way that Trump could have used the FBI the way that the Biden administration is, because the management structure of the FBI is totally captured. It's what we call ideological capture. And it's an administrative process. It started happening sometime under Director Mueller, probably right after 9/11. So that goes back over 20 years now. It became an intelligence agency. And intelligence agencies, one, they don't like transparency. They don't like giving up their secrets. And then two, and probably the most importantly, they tend to have a lot of cerebral academic types on them, and they think government is the answer. So you end up with a lot of people that lean left. I would answer it like this. Like, Trump is the CEO when he was the president of the country. He was the CEO. Imagine being the CEO of a big company. Imagine Walmart. I live down here outside of Austin, Texas. If you think that the CEO of Walmart knows what's going on in the Walmart down the street from me, I would say they probably don't. You know, they don't know who's what they're doing at the door greeter spot, and they don't know what's happening with the night cashiers, and they certainly don't know what the branch manager's doing on a daily basis in the break room. So that's why Trump couldn't do anything on it. And the fact that the management of the Bureau was already inclined to do sort of the Democratic dirty work, that's why we had what we had under Trump, and why it's working well under Biden.
So I have a question for you, Kyle. So now we have evidence that Joe Biden is now he was being investigated before for bribery, up to I think it was $5 million of a bribe from, I'm not sure where it's Burisma or some other foreign relations that was being investigated. Do you think that something is going to come of this? Because we see people talking about it. We know the investigation existed. It seems that now people know about it. Maybe they have to continue the investigation. Do you think that the FBI is going to continue to its end to investigate Biden and put him in jail for the bribery that he probably was involved in?
I think the FBI got gun shy after they sort of let Hillary Clinton off the hook, and they're trying to stay out of politics. At least they think they are. And by doing so, they are actually getting involved in politics. So it's a really strange moment in history where you see, the deputy director, that's Paul Abate. He was just in front of Ted Cruz the other day, and you've probably played some clips over there. Or people have been playing them all the last couple of days. Josh Hawley was out there kind of yelling at him. And that's the number 2 guy in the Bureau. And he dressed up like an old school Bureau guy with a black suit and a black tie, and just stonewalled these suckers. You know, he just does not want to tell anybody anything. And if the FBI wasn't playing politics, it would be fine. But they are playing politics, and I don't have any expectation on there. The other thing is this. Most of the frontline agents that I dealt with were either hyper-political, and they were paying attention to everything, and they were outraged the same way that maybe you and I are. And then probably the vast majority of them just kind of put their head in the sand. So I had a conversation in April of 2022 with one of my colleagues who was a West Point graduate and a good guy, worked national security. He'd never heard of the Hunter Biden laptop story. He didn't know that it was out there. He'd never seen any of the pictures. He didn't even know what we were talking about when me and my boss were sitting and kind of like riffing about it, because somebody had remixed a bunch of these pictures to a Biggie Small song, and it was kind of funny to watch. Like, there it is. He'd never heard of it. He's like, "What are you guys talking about?" You know, totally head in the sand. And I think that's probably more common than not, that they try to stay out of politics to the point where they actually don't know anything about that's going on in this country.
Wow, I see the value in that, right? I see the value in being impartial, because as a former police officer and obviously worked in FBI, we are supposed to do our investigations impartially. Even if we are heavily involved in politics. When you are doing your job, you're supposed to step back from the job, step back from your personal life, and say, I'm going to do this investigation as if I'm investigating on behalf of, not only that you're sworn to protect, but sometimes you can go to the point of saying, I'm going to investigate as if my mother was the victim of this crime. I'm going to investigate and be fair to this investigation. Maybe not a great analogy, because then that maybe you're partial to that. But regardless of that, I think that is, it's invaluable, even if you're into politics, for you to be impartial at times. So if Trump is elected in 2024, I think that if they don't put him in prison, his chances of getting elected is higher than it has ever been, probably in history, given the fact that they are attacking him in such a way that it doesn't seem normal to any rational person, and it doesn't seem fair, given the fact that we have the example of Hillary Clinton. 2024, Trump is elected, and the FBI is now in the state that it's in. Could Donald Trump replace or appoint a person that is on his side? And could they then be led to investigate the things that he believes is an infraction to the American people?
He would have to gut the management, and that's certainly a possibility. But yeah, I mean, he could do that. They're basically opening up Pandora's box. If you're going to start coming after your political opponents with what is essentially the capabilities of a secret police, the FBI as an intelligence agency can use all kinds of national security tools, but they also have the badge and the gun where they can have powers to arrest. So if they're going to use all those things on a political way on one side, and that's, good for the goose, then I guess it's good for the gander. It's bad for the country. I think we can all agree on that. It's pretty terrible. And the one thing I've been advocating is that they get rid of this intelligence apparatus. They take that out of the equation, because nobody should be using that in a political way. And honestly, I'm not real comfortable with the way they use it against Americans in general. So it'd be nice if we were able to kind of isolate that piece out and let the Bureau go back to doing law enforcement, go after, child sex traffickers, and go after people that are, defrauding the American public of millions of dollars, and, and COVID relief funds or whatever it is that they want to go do. Like, at least it's not politically involved and there's not a lot of politics on that end of it. That'd be great. But he definitely has that power. And if Trump gets in and, like, you know, they're highlighting him in a big way. They're making him the target. And I don't think Americans like to see unfairness. You know, they don't like to see someone who is being railroaded. And, you know, he may have done some of the things that they said, and he may be, you know, nominally guilty of some of these sort of things, but certainly not to the detriment of the United States. It's not like he's done damage to the U.S. by the stuff he's talking about in the circles he is. And then I'll give you this last thing for your audience to chew on. The Department of Justice regularly turns down national security prosecutions. They do the investigation, but they don't do the prosecution. And you're probably familiar with that as a police officer. You know, that you come in and the prosecutor's like, no, I don't want that one. And the reason why they do it in the national security space so often is oftentimes the evidence is classified. And if you have classified evidence, and we're talking about that in the case of Trump, they've got to declassify it to put it in front of a jury. Those people don't have a security clearance. And so they're going to have to expose the documents, and then they're going to have to make the argument that they declassified maybe very, very sensitive techniques, sources and methods is what they call them in the national security realm. They're going to have to declassify these things simply to get Donald Trump. And a lot of what the stuff is that was classified in those boxes, those top secret clearance, and then it was also like secured compartmented information. Those things are based on really sensitive collection methods, sometimes that cost millions, if not tens of millions of dollars. And you're going to expose those capabilities to our enemies simply to go after Donald J. Trump. That's a really hard sell for me. That's why they walk away from a lot of these prosecutions. And the fact that they're doing it makes it feel even more political to me, who used to be, you know, in an office where they did that stuff.
Wow, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to go to the break here in a second, but you're listening to Kyle Seraphin. Is it appropriate to say that you're an FBI whistleblower?
It is.
All right, perfect. We listen to the FBI whistleblower, so you know he's telling the truth, nothing but the truth, so help him God. Y'all hold the phone. I'll be back after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, welcome back to the Officer Tatum Show. My guest is back, and I know you guys are enjoying this conversation because I got a lot more to talk about. And who better to explain these things than former FBI and FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Kyle, welcome back to the Officer Tatum Show.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back.
Hey, in the break we were chatting a little bit, and I wanted to know how on God's green earth did the FBI, because you're the best person and most qualified person to talk about this that I know of. So how did the FBI engage Donald Trump civilly? It seems like they looked at documents. It was cooperation on both sides. It wasn't nothing crazy that happened. They even gave him some more information about securing some of these documents. And how did that lead to maybe a month or so later, they're now barging into his house and doing an entire raid? How did these two things happen?
So it's that management structure that you have. So for credibility, I worked out of Washington field office for 5 years. They sent agents from the Washington field office down to Mar-a-Lago to do that search. And my understanding is they used the hostage rescue team and the Miami SWAT team to go and secure this premises. They secured it despite the fact that it is guarded almost around the clock by Secret Service agents. So that's bizarre. And you know, you can't make up how unusual this situation is. But here's what went on. We're hearing that there were some rumblings from the assistant director of the Washington field office, whose name is Steve D'Antuono. Some people will recognize his name because he was the guy that was the special agent in charge of Detroit that did the Whitmer kidnapping case. And so this same guy, he got promoted. He was in charge of the Washington field office. And he didn't want to go and serve the search warrant in that way. In fact, his argument was they should seek consent. Now, you know from being a cop that if you get a consent search and you have a warrant, now you're bulletproof, right? Because even if the warrant doesn't hold up, they gave you consent. Now, they could pull it at any time, and at least you got the warrant in your back pocket. But the right way to do it, particularly because you're dealing with someone like Donald Trump, who used to be the president of the United States, getting a consent search is both logical and it's reasonable, and it's the way that you would normally do stuff. But the guy just below him, who was the special agent in charge of the counterintelligence division, so literally his subordinate, pushed back, and he ended up winning that disagreement, that discussion. And so they ended up sending a bunch of agents on a plane flying down to Miami, which, by the way, is also very unusual. And they ended up conducting a search warrant, even though their initial and probably correct instinct was to get consent.
Yeah, that is mind blowing to me. You never go with violence and the potential for people getting hurt and using all of those resources, right? I mean, it's not cheap to fly all those FBI agents down there, their equipment, and then also coordinating with local law enforcement, the SWAT team. Stuff can get dangerous, and then doing it with the Secret Service protecting them. Like, did they inform? You may not know this. Maybe it'll come out in a trial. Did they inform the Secret Service and say, hey, we're going to do a raid on Mar-a-Lago, so don't be surprised if we come guns a-blazing? And that's very bizarre to me. And I think that Donald Trump was cooperative initially. I've never seen a case where you have cooperation and then it leads to tactical violence potentially. It's like cooperation leads to more cooperation, leads to patient cooperation. It's no need to jump in there. It's not like he somehow threatened to make copies of the documents and send them to a foreign country, or that he has a server in his house and he's sending and receiving classified information on an unsecured server that's managed by a man without a security clearance. How's that even possible? You would think they would raid Hillary's place. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're living in a world that's totally upside down. And look, a lot of this stuff started a couple years back, and we're living in the most bizarre timeline, like we were talking about at the break. You know, it feels like we're living in a movie plot, and it doesn't make any sense. And it almost got to the zombie apocalypse, it felt like. If you remember the beginning of 2020, you know, I was driving into D.C. when they had these signs up that said, stay home, wear a mask, don't talk to anybody, hide from your kids. And, you know, there's dirt and trash blowing across the road, and nobody was going to work except me. I was still going to work. And so you had that time happen. And then 2 years later, where, you know, they got someone kicking down the door of the president's house, or the former president's house, and serving a search warrant. And we don't know yet, actually, whether they coordinated with Secret Service. We know they waited until Donald Trump wasn't there. So at least there was a smaller security detail at the time. But, you know, the possibility of blue-on-blue violence is a big deal. That's a real serious concern. And for whatever reason, they decided to go ahead with this. And for me, what it looks like, and I don't want to draw the perfect parallel, but it's there. You know, they're doing the same thing to a lot of these January 6th defendants as well. And it feels like they're making the process the punishment. They're making these people feel bad about what they, you know, quote unquote, did. They're not treating them with a sort of detached law enforcement interest where it's like, look, you may have broken a law. You're entitled to a defense. We're going to put you through this process. You're going to get handcuffs. You're going to get printed. You're going to be arraigned. You're going to be released. Then you'll go to trial. That's not what they're doing. They're trying to parade this guy out like they got a trophy. This is like the big drug bust where they throw everything out on the table and everybody stands there with their arms crossed and their hands, you know, and their chest really big. That's kind of what we saw with the documents that they were out there parading. It was a parade, but it's like, it's documents. It's not sexy. It's not fun. But that's what these guys did. That was their Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I wonder, Kyle, like, okay, are they trying to divert attention by also exposing other people who had documents? Like, are they doing that to divert attention, or is the FBI getting ready to come down very hard on others? Now, we already know Pence, they've gave him the green light, but Biden is still not in the green when it comes to him having classified documents. We know that some of those documents possibly he had since he was vice president, which there is no presidential security clearance or declassifying documents as the president. He don't have that authority as the vice president. So I'm wondering, are they going to give equal justice, just not now, for Biden? Or are we going to see a case like Hillary where they have a two-tier system? Donald Trump is going to get ran through the mud, and then they're going to say, oh, but Joe Biden is totally fine, and there's no reasonable prosecutor will prosecute these crimes that Joe Biden has partaken in. So do you think that there's going to be a reckoning for Biden, or you think they're going to, in front of the world, let him go with classified documents as well?
So just a point of clarity. My understanding is that Barack Obama actually changed the way that the vice president is able to handle things and has very similar authorities to the president. But some of the documents dated back to his time in the Senate, which obviously predate any of his ability to do that. But here's the question, and I think what you're asking, there's not really an answer that we can know yet, because both of them are on the table, and here's why. Number one, they can let Biden skate, and he can try to, you know, run and be successful maybe in being reelected, and then that's a possibility, and they've got that. But they've also got the ability, they being the you know, sort of the powers that be, sort of this Democrat establishment, they can also rattle the sword to have Biden taken out if they need him to be removed. they've got this trump card over him. And if they want to install somebody else, they want to have they want to have the vice president step in. If they want to have Kamala Harris do it, if they want a Michelle Obama, if they want a Gavin Newsom, they can actually make them the heir apparent by removing him in a clean way. Because how else do you get the the actual president right now to step aside and not run for re-election without looking weak? It'd be very difficult. But if he was removed, you got that back pocket tool. So that's they win either way with this.
Right. Kyle, where can people find you and how can they support you? I got like 10 seconds left. I'm running out of time. How can they find you, support you, and your podcast?
So my podcast is rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, and they can find me on Twitter and on Truth Social. It's very easy. It's Kyle Seraphin, @Kyle Seraphin.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.